In the next set of videos, we're going to be doing case studies. These case studies are taken from people in history. The advantage we have is that they have extensive biographies, which give us a good, well-rounded view of these personalities. I'm going to do Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. Edison was born February the 11th, 1847. As a young boy, he had a keen and inquisitive mind, yet he did not do well at school. So his mother, a former school teacher, took him from school and tutored him herself at home. In later life, he said that his mother taught him to read well and instilled a love of books that lasted the rest of his life. Now, in fact, the inventor's personal library of more than 10,000 books is preserved in the Edison Laboratory National Monument in West Orange, New Jersey. Edison put into effect what is probably the greatest idea, the first industrial research lab. He chose Menlo Park in New Jersey, which was then a small rural community. And Edison had a small building converted into the lab for his 15-member staff and a house built for his wife and 2 daughters. When he was asked to explain the point of the lab, Edison boldly stated that he would produce, quote, a minor invention every 10 days and a big thing every 6 months or so. This statement was not well received by the scientific community. Most mocked him and felt that the statement was preposterous. However, in the next 10 years, Edison would prove them wrong. He would be granted over 400 patents, including the electric light bulb, the motion picture, the phonograph, the universal electric motor, the fluorescent lamp, and the medical fluoroscope. These were major contributions. It just seemed that he had created an invention factory. He would be granted over 1,000 patents, which is an incredible number in his lifetime. And his achievements at the invention factory earned him the nickname, the Wizard of Menlo Park. A good quote of his, when he was asked to describe invention, he described genius as 2% inspiration and 98% perspiration. So we get a good view of Edison, and let's now contrast it with Tesla. Tesla was born in Yugoslavia, 1856, studied mathematics and physics in Prague, and in 1884 he emigrated to the United States. In New York, he met Edison, the self-educated inventor. The 2 men were both gifted, eccentric, but they got along famously. Tesla was unemployed at that time, and so Edison offered him a job. Edison and Tesla began development into motors, generators, transformers, and others. They both had very strong views on different aspects. This led to a series of arguments. One major one was the discussion on how power should be distributed over transmission lines, electrical power. Edison and Tesla had opposing views, and Tesla would win on this occasion, and the world would choose his choice, which was actually AC power distribution. Eventually, the hatred would develop between the 2 men and they would separate. Tesla creating his own company, but the anger remained, and they had a mutual friend, Mark Twain, who was equally famous as novelist, and he had invited them both to a party, and because the others knew, one knew that the other one was attended, they both refused to come. difficulty between them was even more pronounced in 1912 when Edison and Tesla were both nominated for the Nobel Prize in Physics. But because neither one of them would have anything to do with one another, the prize actually went to a third party. So this bitterness is interesting and maybe somewhat inevitable, given the fact that they had a strength of character and an idea that this is how it should be done, and neither would actually stray. And both were successful in that, which reinforced their conviction. So if we take a look at this, we end up seeing the arcs of a character. To break that down and make it a bit more easier to understand, the story will expose your characters to a set of parameters, a mission, an objective, a problem to be solved, and this will affect the character. Where does the character start? And how is the character at the end of the story? We can have positive arcs, negative arcs, or a flat arc, which is no development at all. Let's imagine your novel is using conflict between two major elements, a protagonist and an antagonist. Is there a positive arc in your character's growth? That means that he or she gained a better understanding of themselves in the world. Good example of this would be Luke Skywalker from Star Wars. He is a naive farm boy who then becomes a confident Jedi. So most of the time, a lot of stories follow that innocence to experience transition. And so this would be a classic positive arc. A negative arc is where the character undergoes a downfall. A good example would be Anakin Skywalker, again from Star Wars. This is a heroic Jedi that succumbs to the dark side and ultimately becomes the villainous Darth Vader. We can have a flat arc or a static arc where the character remains largely unchanged from the impacts of the story. A good example of this would be Sherlock Holmes, for example, who starts at a certain point and ends up almost in exactly the same place. He is unchanged by each one of his cases. So these arcs, these characters will make the story more compelling, giving characters much more depth, will allow the reader to immerse themselves more thoroughly, and they will gain an understanding of those characters and will actually know what they will do, when they will do it, how they would respond. So I hope this one's been helpful to you. Please look in to more details. There is a wealth of information about characters like Edison and Tesla available to you, and this would help you in the development of yours. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.